Hey, this is a first impressions, and also going to show a graph of the Moondrop Blessing. This is a hybrid, single dynamic, and I believe 4 balanced armatures. Excuse me if I'm not correct. Some people send me private messages and say, "Hey, why don't you check the basics before you turn on the video camera?" Kiss my ass, number one, and number two. If I look at the internet, I see other people's thoughts about this item, and then I start to subconsciously look for what they talk about or adopt it. It's the way the brain works, so I don't want to see what other people think about this set. I did see a graph previously, but the one I graphed out didn't look like that till I looked and found one that looked like the one that I have right over there. So I unless it says it on the box, I don't know. And it's not like you can't just type the name and find out as easily as I could. I don't want to know this stuff before I do a video. I want to learn what my brain thinks and then pass that on to you guys. So if I didn't know that this had a dynamic driver in it, because it's a hybrid, so it must, I would never think it does. Compared to the Fearless S6, that sounds like it's got more bass. Recently, starting with the DM6 by BGVP, the file FA7, because of that particular BA that they're using, has more bass and very good bass than a lot of dynamics do recently. So if I were to take this in the S6 and have them, and someone said which one's got the dynamic, if I was listening to regular music, like something like the Police, Invisible Sun, I don't know if you guys know this track, it's got a, I think there's a keyboardist. This is basically a 3-person group, I think. That's their faces on the album. It took me years before I realized what that was. I believe it's Sting in the middle with his spiky hair. Ghost and Machine is the name of this album. If I listen to this song, just the bass, it's maybe an organ or a synth effect that they're doing on the deck. I would think that the other set has the dynamic and not this one. This is a very, from the bass to the mids is a very, very stable. There's really not a lot of elevation. So the bass is relatively tame. If you like the DM6's bass, or you like the FA7's bass, or you like most slightly elevated basses, this might not be the set that you're interested in, because it's a little bit polite. Almost too much, but they're going for a target, and this is kind of part of it. The mids on this go with the piano are fantastic. The mids on this are excellent. I would say the strong point of this set is the mids. Not the treble. What you would assume with the Harmon target, that the treble and the way that it's molded into a hill would be the best part. It's actually the mids of this set that are probably its strong point. Piano on this sounds as good as I've heard it on any set. Sounds slightly back. The keys all sound very clear. It's a great presentation. There's a certain thinness to this set compared to the Fearless that I've been listening to, and if I look at a graph, I can see why. And if I listen and I got a good fit, I can hear what the graph's showing. If there's a spike at 8K, you're going to hear it. If you didn't know there was a spike at 8K and you listen to something and you hear a hi-hat splash kind of in a certain way, you would imagine that there would be. So when I got this, my image of the Harmon curve was, let me show you guys. Put this to the side for a second. Remember, this is like an intro. This isn't the review. My image of the Harmon curve is kind of like this, with this maybe a little bit up more of a hill. And this is the Fearless, and then this is the other Fearless, the 5BA, and then this is the Crevasse. I'm sorry, the Blessing, the one that I'm showing you right now. So that's exactly at 8K. That little spike right there, is that a big deal? No, but when I was listening to this track in particular, this one, and I heard the hi-hat, and because I've been listening to the Fearless for the past 2 days, 3 days, exclusively, and listening to this exact same song, that splash sounded different to me. And not quite as good as it did as on this set, where 8K is still elevated, but not relative to 4 to 5. So I've been listening to this mostly, and then to switch to this. Can you pick up that 8K? I can. Do I have golden ears? I think I do, actually, to be honest with you. And then a nice gold hue comes in because of reflection. Perfect timing. So this is the Harmon curve with a slight emphasis in the 8K region, which for me is not a bad thing, but it's a noticeable thing. It's like 10K being recessed. If you back up, you can see that there's a massive dip at 10K. That's something that is the thing about the Harmon curve that I'm least attracted to, is that I think that the sense of air and space on a set is very close to 10K. So first impressions of these are that China is kicking major ass. The bass of this is quite polite. The mids are spectacular, and the treble is got a little spike at 8K, and that's a personal not thing that I'm great. Let me go back. And people say, well, the DM6 has a spike at 8K. It's never done that in my set. Quite close, but it's not. This is 8K. You can see it right there. That's actually getting ready and just starting to climb. About 20% out the hill, where it's hitting a peak at 9K, but not 8K. And also this set's treble is the same as its bass. It's quite different. This is the compliant coupler that I'm using right here, and that's the DM6. 10K has got a spike on it too, so that's why the DM6 gives a lot of people say the DM6 is amazingly spacious. It is. It's probably the thing that it has over these other sets, that it's got that massive stage. So we go back to the Blessing, and you've got a spike at 8K, which is not a big problem for me because it's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it follows into a massive crevasse. 8, 9, 10. 10 is relatively recessed. It's the presentation of the stage is good, but it's not the same as like something like a DM6. So if you go from a DM6 to this, the first thing you would think is a little more normal with its presentation, whereas the DM6 is just like really wide, like an EX1000, abnormally so. But that's, if you're a stagehead, that's what you're going for. If I were coming from the Fearless and listening to this, I would think the bass is slightly not there, and the hi-hats sound different. I just did a video and I said the hi-hats on the Fearless S6 sound awesome, really, really good. And the first thing that made me stop and then go do the graph was this song, the hi-hats on this particular song. So if you want to listen to No More, No More by Aerosmith, oh, we're switched. If you want to hear the hi-hat in this, that's exactly the thing that made me say, wait, that doesn't sound like what I imagine that hill is. So graph that, graphed it, and right, bingo, where I think it's going to be, there's a spike right there. And I didn't recall that was what I thought I'd seen. So I guess I did have a kind of impression of what I was about to hear. Something didn't match it. I do a graph. There's what my brain is so tied into a frequency graph that it's more, I don't know that I'm enjoying music as much as I used to, because I'm constantly listening for things more than I'm listening to the music. It's the blessing and the curse. Someday I'll get out of the hobby and I'll just enjoy the music and won't be picking apart frequency graphs. But where I'm at now in the hobby, that's what I'm doing. So if you buy this stuff and you enjoy it, if you got this set and you say, I love it, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, I can get it, man, because you're not doing what I'm doing, which is listening to it, hearing thing that's like you think is different than what you're expecting or what you have been listening to, and then go graph something and then pinpoint where you think that thing is. It's a way overthinking. Paralysis by analysis is what a lot of reviewers get as a side effect of doing what they do in the hobby. You get gear, you get to keep it, nobody feels sorry for you, of course nobody should. I'm blessed, but I'm not listening to music in the same way that you guys. I'm listening to bass relative to the mids. I'm listening to pianos. I'm listening to hi-hat splashes. I'm not listening to the song so much. It's the way it is. So my first impressions of the Moondrop Blessing would be the first hybrid that I've heard that is tuned in this way. I can't hear the dynamic driver. I wouldn't know that it's dynamic if I wasn't told it was so. If someone said that this was 6BA, I believe that there's not a track that makes it sound like I did Tupac. There's not a track on here. Oh. No, that's Stevie Wonder, man. When We Ride. It's a DSD. Listening to this track, I wouldn't know that this had a dynamic driver in it. The bass sounds good. It sounds a little bit polite. But I'm a EX1000 guy, so I got no issues with that. I can EQ 55 and be fine. But did note it because I thought dynamic hybrid, it's gonna be okay with the bass when it's supposed to be there. I knew that these are famous because of the way that they graph out, so I didn't expect bass to dominate or to be, really there unless the master called for it. And this does call for it, but this is still kind of polite. So, first impressions. Which one would I recommend? This one or listen, the Fearless, I can read the name on the BA through the acrylic because it's that high quality acrylic, and the tuning I showed you on graph is fantastic, and these, I think they're a little cheaper than this set. I would recommend the Fearless. And I honestly think that these look like a tooth. Like a tooth. That's the thing that came with the A-New U1, I think those were called. I like the sound initially. The more I listened to it, the more it sounded like there was a treble issue. Same thing that happened with the V80. It's got an appealing, engaging sound in the beginning, and when you start to critical listen, you start to find the flaws with it. I don't get that with this because this is tuned well and it sounds great, but it looks like a tooth. But you could pick another design, I guess. But the Fearless is like, its whole main point is its tuning and its customization options, and I think it's just slightly cheaper than this. So if you just ordered the Fearless and you're thinking, well, should I have gotten this? No, you made the right choice. If you ordered this and you like this, you made the right choice. There's so many choices now coming out of China that are of high quality that the video that needs to be done is, are the items that are $1,000 and over really worth it? Forget about, is this worth $400? Are those worth $1,000? Fuck no. That's ridiculous. That's putting a brand name and a boutique name and then adding another few hundred because of the name, not because of the internals or the tuning. It's a money grab, but that's what the hobby that we're in. I like the Blessing. I don't think I'll recommend it because I've already got something in its exact price slot. And how many things can I recommend? I keep hand-picking stuff to be sent to me, so I'm going to like a lot of them, but if I put check marks, people are going to start to think he likes everything. So I think I'll probably not wreck this, but you can decide for yourself, and there's a lot of people that are big fans of these, and my only issue that I'm having so far is the bass seems a little too polite, and that 8K spike is apparent if you're not listening to a set that already has a spike in that location. The sound of crashes on hi-hats is going to be different than if that same spot on a graph is different, which is again the illness that it comes from doing reviews, that you're actually even concerned with a 8K spike, that's like something you harp on because you review something, and a lot of people share that particular frequency as being an issue. That's the review life. I get well taken care of, and I get to keep this stuff and other stuff like a lot of reviewers do, so it's not a problem. But someday I'm going to get back to enjoying the music, and 8K spikes are not going to be anything that I think about. That's my life now. Someday it won't be. full review will be coming up, and in that review will be a comparison with the Fearless S6. As it sits right now, I would rec Fearless S6 over this set. You wouldn't be losing either way, because there's people paying over $1,000 for sets that I think are not on the same level as this or the S6. So is this worth its money? I think that's the wrong question. Are the things that are much more expensive worth their price? I can say no, in my opinion, and I'm out.
Yelling my name, to be precise, ripping mics is the light of my life. You frontin' like you try for never pull the heist.